Hello world, I'm Don, and in today's video I'm going to process another image from my Nikon D70. So this is an image of my wee puppy who has long since unfortunately passed away. I had this guy between 2000 and 2010. This image was from the east coast of Canada, just a little bit before I came here. So a couple of highlights that might be of interest with this one. I'm going to process the exposure aspect of it with the tone curve because I'm trying to be very careful about some of the whites in his fur and not having them blow out. And the other thing that might be a little different and of interest is I'm going to be using inverted masking when I get to the local adjustments phase. So let's jump in and take a look. All right, so here is our image of one very happy, wet, and dirty dog. So let's jump in and take a look. This is the reset virtual copy, and this is where I am headed. Not a huge amount, but maybe a couple of interesting techniques in here. So let's take a look. So back here, and first thing I'm going to do is jump to my white balance. Do that real quick. And I'll just grab the color picker and see if I can't find a good spot on his fur. Might have been just luck of the draw, but when I did this for the first image, almost straight away went to 5819, 56 and 18. That's probably pretty close, yeah. I kind of liked the 58 and 19, so I'll just never did find that spot again, though. I guess fur is so variable. So there we go. So that's a start. So original white balance, new white balance. That's where we're at. So now I'm going to pop over to my light tab. And when I looked at this image, one of the first things I thought was that I wanted to probably put on a little bit of smart lighting. I look over here. This is just my luminance. Of course, you can change any of these that you like, but I've currently got it on luminance. Everything looked good. I've got my highlights. Should show if they're clipping. Because I see this spot and it looks quite bright, but it's not showing as clipping or anything. So I thought I'll pop on some smart lighting. But that seemed to, especially if I crank that in there quite substantially, it just seems to be removing some detail from there. And I thought, well, maybe spot weighting. So I came here. I really suspected that this would work, but I still found that just a little bit bright. So I thought, okay, what else can I do? So I turned off smart lighting, came away from that, and I thought tone curve. So I thought I can control my whites here sort of primarily and then go from there, just get them to a spot that I like. So if I grab this corner up here and drag it straight across the top, that is essentially, I'm sure there's some nuance in there, but it's essentially like doing a whites adjustment in some other applications, because that is, you know, it's dragging the whole histogram, but it's obviously going to impact the whites. So, you know, I bring that across. 235 might be a bit much for me. 242, yeah, seems reasonable. It goes quite bright, but I still feel like there's a decent amount of detail in there. And I also thought that I did want to lift those mids up a bit, so I'll do that in here as well. Still just keeping an eye on those, that those aren't going. Might even just take a couple more points out of that. And if I mouse over those, what am I? I'm just looking at my histogram now. It's 230, 230. It's not crazy. 235, 240 on the blue channel there. Yes, I mean, it's pretty bright, but it's not ridiculously bright, but it feels right to me. So I'm going to leave that there. And I'm just going to take the shadowy area and not lift that. So maybe not 100%, but just bringing that in a little more sharply than it naturally would, give it that other curve. Right. So that's sort of solved that problem for me. Goes quite bright. So that's sort of the difference that we're experiencing there. And then I also wanted, while we're in the light tab, to pop on a little contrast. I'll flick that on, and of course it will add its ever so helpful micro contrast that if you've watched videos before, you see me constantly turning it down. I'm sure some people love it. For me, I don't know. It's never been my absolute. There are some images that it really works for, but I tend to enjoy the fine contrast a little bit more, which is just not quite as fine as micro contrast, if that makes sense. Yeah, so that's looking good to me. That's looking good to me. So I've done that and that. Also, just before I go to a local adjustment, I'm going to pop back here, and I just feel like the saturation's a little bit low on this, so I'm going to bump up the global saturation a bit, maybe to about 20-ish. That's good. Excellent. So that, and that's all good. I'm also going to throw on Deep Prime. This is a little bit of a flyer, but I just feel like this is a bit of an older image file, and I just suspect it's going to tidy it up a little. So I'll have a look at the export and make sure that it looks nice and clean. So now, enough of that. Let's get on to the local adjustment that I want to do. And I've already got my brush selected here, having already been through this process. And you can see that my brush is really quite huge. Just using the standard, not the auto brush, not any of the other tools, just straight up brush. And I'm just going to draw around the wee puppy like this with a very soft, the feather is up as high as it can go, size is up as high as it can go. Whole 9 yards, just kind of getting a circle around. And I'm going to use this a little bit like a vignette, but obviously I don't want to make this part darker, so I'm going to just pop over to my controls space, and I'm going to use this little button here that's to invert mask, and you'll see when I come back over it now that it's everything but that which I had painted on. So I'm going to, like I said, use this a little bit like a vignette. So I'm going to bring that exposure down in spaces that are not directly where he is. Just hoping to draw attention in that space. And I am going to reduce micro contrast in those spaces. Not a heap, but a little bit in those spaces where he is not. So again, keeping it more contrasty where he is. Just looking for variations that I can do. And, what do I have? I've got light that I can contrast. I've got perceived sharpness that micro contrast brings. So, with that difference creates a contrast. I thought also color creates a contrast. So although I upped my saturation previously, I'm going to down the vibrance a little bit on the outside areas. Again, not heaps. None of these are huge, but just hoping to make that little bit of a difference to draw the eye in. And one other thing that I think I can probably count on 2 fingers the number of times I've ever used the sharpener blur in this space. It's just not usually my thing, but I thought to myself, just a couple, oh no, not 11, 3, that'll do. I was after 2, 3'll do. Yeah, so a little bit of blur there, just looking for ways to contrast that. So let's see. So that's just the local adjustments. I think maybe I might have gone just a little bit far with my exposure on this one. I don't want it to be massive. I don't want to look at it and go, whoa, is that bit ever brighter? I want it to just subtly help to bring the eye in. Right. Nice. So that's actually it. Quite a simple edit today, but maybe a little bit of different techniques in terms of the tone curve, maybe in terms of the inverted mask for doing that sort of a vignette. So yeah, let's go ahead and I'll close my local adjustments. Let's go ahead and export this to disk, and I'll zoom in on the exported file and see if it looks nice and clean and tidy. So export to disk, standard output, JPEG, original image folder. Yep, so that's all good. It's on sRGB, all good, cool. I'm expecting, again, this is a 6 megapixel file, so I'm expecting it to be quite quick. There we go, yeah, 2 seconds, even with Deep Prime on. Nice. And so here is the JPEG result. And let me just, we're not going to be able to zoom in too far, so that's at 100%. Looks nice and sharp, nice and clean. Lovely. And let me just cheat a little bit and just pop in here and see. I don't know that it's made a huge difference, but maybe just tidied it up a little. I feel like through here I might be seeing just a little bit of introduction of color noise that I maybe don't see there, but yeah, I might also be just imagining things. Let's just say it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to put that Deep Prime on. All right, so that's all for this one. Quite a straightforward, but hopefully there was something in there that you can take away from that edit. If you're new here, thanks so much for coming along and giving these videos a try. If you're a repeat attender, Thanks so much for coming back. I really appreciate it. Bye for now, and I'll see you again.